It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today I'm going to talk about what I'm currently using in the open source world. I make this video about once a year. It's not always a year, sometimes a year and a half, sometimes a little less, but I felt like this was a good time. I've done a lot of videos over the last few years. I know you guys have watched a ton of my videos, and you may be interested in what do I actually keep running after I show it to you, and what am I currently running. So first of all, foremost, I guess the best open source project that I use is Firefox. It's a great browser. I love it. They really went through some changes about 5 or 6 years ago where they just sped things up, where they made it so much more just incredibly efficient on CPU, on processes. You know, Chrome is great. It does a few things that other browsers may not do. It's got a bunch of extensions, but it's kind of a pig when it comes to resources. So I don't use it for a lot of stuff. I'll say that their developer tools when I'm doing any kind of programming are generally a little bit better than what I get out of Firefox, but overall Firefox is my go-to. It's the one that I use for everything. So you'll see that I've got a ton of tabs open. I don't even worry about it because Firefox, again, is just so good with the CPU and the way that things work. So really Firefox would be my number one. Now, before we get to this dashboard, my next one would be Linux. I use Linux. It's open source. I love Linux. I try to use it on everything. I have it on my servers. I have it on my desktops. I have it on my kids' machines. I mean, it's just one of those things where I don't want to deal with Windows anymore. I have to deal with it for my regular day job, and that's plenty. That's more than what I really want to anyways. So I just try not to use it when it's after hours, weekends, things like that. I'll support people who do use Windows, but really for myself, it's just not something I like. I love Linux. It's come so far. I mean, I know people are very used to this is what you see in Linux, and we'll talk about this application in a minute. You know, the terminal, that's how you have to do things in Linux. That's not true. Now, if you're running a Linux server, it makes sense to do it here. And yes, it's not the clickety-clickety that people like, but there's some great front ends for Linux servers if you like the clickety-clickety as well. We can talk about that too. But for me, the desktop on Linux is just amazing. So, I mean, if I do this, you can see all of the things that I'm running. And I know Windows added this feature, you know, a couple years back with Windows 10, but this has been around in Linux and Mac OS forever, where you get this nice spread out of different things that you have open and you can pick them. Virtual desktops where you can switch between your different desktops and put more windows in different places, and tile management and all that kind of stuff. It's just amazing. And honestly, with Linux today, the settings that you get out of it, I mean, if I just go looking for my settings just all on its own, I mean, it's so easy. Right there, open up my settings, they come up. I've got all my settings here. It's all graphical. It's nothing where I'm having to go change config files anymore. You know, it's really just super easy, super straightforward. Set your theme, set your colors. I mean, all the things you're used to in a normal operating system, they're here. They're built into these really amazing desktop environments. And that's one of the things I like about Linux is you have a great level of choice when it comes to your desktop environment. With Windows, you're kind of stuck with Windows, and yeah, there's theming that's available, and there's some heavy applications that you can put onto it that'll give it a different look and feel, but honestly, they just add to the clutter and stuff that's already in Windows, so it doesn't make it better. Mac OS, you're really kind of stuck with what Apple wants you to use. I love Mac OS. I think it's a great experience, and I think they really go way above and beyond in trying to give you the most amazing experience that they can. But I do love the freedom of setting up a Linux machine that I like and changing the desktops. And if you watch my videos from way back all the way till now, you'll see that I've used like 4 or 5 different distros and desktops over the time. I mean, I've used Ubuntu Mate, I've used Kubuntu, I've used Pop! OS for a while. I'm using Ubuntu with GNOME on it right now. I mean, it's just, there's so many great choices, and I like to switch once in a while. I like to change things up and try something different and see how it goes. And you know, it's just such a really great, easy way to do things. But if you're one of those people who thinks that this is what Linux is still, don't fool yourself. Really and truly, this is not just the only thing that you get for Linux anymore. I mean, great. The terminal is amazing, and it's powerful if you want to use it. But it's not a requirement to get into Linux and start using it and getting it to its fullest potential. They have so many amazing things. Everything can be done through the GUI. I mean, it's just up to you to use the terminal if you want to. So as we continued on, I do want to talk about the dashboard. Now, this is called Dashie. I did a video on this a couple years ago. I had been messing with some other dashboards. I'd messed with Homer, which was great. I liked it. It was fine. I messed with Heimdall a little bit, which was also fine. But when Dashie came along, I really liked what the developer had done. She just really went out of her way to give you a lot of really great ways to do different things. You've got all kinds of different control up here. You can make this thing look however you want. You can change it with a click of a button. I mean, it's just so simple to get it to kind of just lay out in different ways and do different things. And really, it's kind of up to you how you want things to look. So I really like it. It's just been a great dashboard for me, and I can lay out all the different things that I want to access really quickly. Plus, I get my weather and my time, which is awesome. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really, truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. So Metabase is really a terrific tool for doing reporting, and I've been using this for a long time. I did a video on this way early in the videos as well, but it still fits. It still works exactly the way that I said. My wife sells things on eBay and has been doing that for a few years, and we track all of her sales and things like that. And I pull that information down from eBay every month, and I have a little special program that I run to push that information over into this database and kind of get it formatted the right way. And then I just use Metabase to look at it and pull out different dashboards and stats so we can see, you know, how much money are we making, how much money are we spending on shipping and handling over time in the months, over time in the years, just different ways that we can do that. And then it's really easy to create these filters where I can say, how did we do in February of this year? And I can just go down and look and just click go. And actually, if I get February checked and then actually click add, you'll see there. So we can see exactly what we did in February, which is great. So yeah, I mean, it's a really awesome tool, and you can use it for so many things. And there's just really great documentation out there. And really, your imagination is the limit. It's not something where you have to know SQL. If you do, you can do a lot more stuff with it, but I mean, you can do a ton with it just by using the graphical click and drag user interface, which is what I've done with all of these things and kind of created this dashboard that we use. Metabase is really amazing. If you haven't looked at it, but if you're looking for a reporting solution, definitely worth your time to kind of go look at it and check it out and see what you can do with it. Really an awesome tool. I really like it a lot. I can't say enough good things about it. Portainer. This is one that I've used for a long time. Now, I don't use it all the time. I do a lot of things through the command line just because I like to do it through the command line, but Portainer is really an absolutely amazing tool. So if you're somebody who is new and you're trying to get into Docker and you feel like, again, you want that clicking experience, if you're more used to the Windows type experience where you use the mouse and the keyboard to do things, you're not as comfortable with the command line, then Portainer might be the right way for you to get started into hosting your own applications through Docker. Portainer is basically a front-end interface for Docker or Kubernetes or Docker Swarm. So when I click on that, what it does is it logs me in. Now I use the community edition. They're trying to push the business edition, which that's how they make money. That's how they support themselves. It's fine. It's just a little banner up here. It's no big deal. But here you can see I've got my local system, which I'm actually logging into, and then it's connected to all of my other servers where I run Docker. And some of these are local. Some of these are remote servers that I have out there. For instance, for my LUG, for my Linux users group, we run some stuff out here. You can see that I've got it, and I can see the status of it, but I can get to any of them from here. I don't have to go log into different places to get to it, so that's a really awesome piece of Portainer itself. But anyone I click into, I get a dashboard for it. So this is one of my local servers, and you can see I'm running 16 containers here. So if I go look at the containers, I can see what they are. I can see their status. I can go in and take actions. I can see logs. I can do all kinds of things from here. I can click in, I can see more details, but I've got all these actions across the top that I could take on this particular container, and really just kind of you've got all that control that you would have through the command line, but you can really click. You can see what's going on. You can do all kinds of really great things through Portainer. It's an amazing tool. And the fact that they leave it as a community offering and it's open source and you can use it is just great. But again, if you're using it for business, if it's a really useful tool for you and your team, think about going out there and saying, hey, we'd like support and we'd like to get the Enterprise Edition with even more functionality and capabilities. I mean, that's always the best way to support open source, is to keep them around by supporting them. But yeah, I love this tool. It's really great. I just use it for personal purposes. But yeah, it's terrific. You know, it's just such a easy way to get in and see things at a glance and really have a good feel for what's going on my different servers and see what's happening. So if I jump out to my Open Source is Awesome server, we can check it out. It's a little bit slower to load, but there we go. So you can see I'm running 16 containers on it as well. And you can see the status of some of them. So some of them I've got turned off, some of them are running. It just depends on which ones I'm trying to run things on. But again, these are all just personal projects and things that I run. Yeah, so I mean, it's just a really, really great way to kind of connect up all my different systems. If I go to this one, it's a little bit more beefy of a server. It loads up pretty fast, and I'm not running too much stuff on it. But here you can see I'm running Jitsi, we're running Discourse, we're running Nginx Proxy Manager, of course, and the Portainer agent. And then, you know, there's several parts to the Jitsi stuff. So really great. I can see what's running. Just an amazing tool. Yeah, Portainer. Definitely go check that out. And again, in the show notes, in the description, I'm going to have links to all of the videos that I've made about these projects. And I'll have links to the show notes that go with these projects on how to set them up and install them. I'll also have links to the project pages so you can go check them out for yourself, because I know some of these will be interesting to you and some of them won't, and that's okay. But I use these are the things that I use all the time. We're going to come over here to Proxmox. So I use Proxmox on 2 different servers here in my house. It's amazing. So again, if you're trying to run a Linux-based server and you want to have virtualization and Linux containers and all kinds of other great things and set up VMs, full VMs that you're accessing in different ways, Proxmox is an enterprise level solution, whether you're using the enterprise version or the community version. Really just a powerful tool, and I love it. So I've got the dark mode going on it here, but you can see all of my different VMs that I'm running, all of my different containers that I'm running. I have some turned off, so I've got a couple of Windows VMs for when I have to do some specific testing for different things for clients that I've got, but they stay off unless I need them. So again, this is a really powerful system. You get this kind of status update. And then here, just for the server itself, I can get a really nice summary of how it's running, what my resources are, what things look like. I can kind of scroll down here and see what things are doing. And again, a really nice dashboard, but then at each component level, I can get the same thing. So I can go here and see what my summary looks like for just what this server is using, or for what this LXC container is using. I can go here and I can get this one. You know, so I can see this was really using up some memory, but this is the one where I run my media server and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it eats up some memory. The big thing about RAM and keeping this in mind is that if you're not using it, it's just sitting there doing nothing. And why? If it's there to be used, it's meant to be utilized so the machine can run. So it doesn't hurt for it to be using it like this. The CPU is a little high, but again, it's functioning because people are probably streaming media right now. But yeah, I mean, Proxmox, incredible tool. Highly recommend if you've been looking around for an enterprise grade server control interface really built for doing virtualization and containerization. Proxmox is just absolutely terrific. Again, I've got videos on it. I've got shared videos with the eBriCorp channel. I've got just all kinds of information about what you can do with it, and I love it. I think it's amazing. So definitely get out there and check that one out. So next one is Nginx Proxy Manager. So I use this again all the time. This is how I set up all of the things that I route around that I use for my different website URLs. So if I want to create a URL to get to some of my services, Nginx Proxy Manager really helps me run that. And I can set it up so that I get Let's Encrypt certificates and HTTPS access, and everything is run in a secure, encrypted way. And it makes it very easy. If you like making Nginx configuration files, then you should definitely do that. But if you don't, or you're not familiar enough with it, or you haven't learned it yet, and you just want a quick, easy way to get it up and running, again, this is a tool that gives you that really great, fast clickability to create that. Because I mean, it's this easy. You click Add a New Host, put in the URL that you want, make sure your A records are set up. And again, I've got videos that tell you how to get everything ready for this. Put in your host name, put in the server IP or the Docker container name, whatever, depending on how you're setting it up, and the port that it's running on, and then click a few tabs and hit save, and you've got a proxy running. If you want SSL, you jump over here and tell it, give me a new certificate, force SSL, turn on HTTP2 support, again, save, let's encrypt do its thing, and if it can get to your server, you get an SSL certificate like that. I mean, it's just so fast and so easy to get things up and running and proxied around in your network or out on your different DigitalOcean VPSs. I use this for all kinds of stuff. It is an amazing open source tool. I just can't say enough good things about Nginx Proxy Manager. You should really check it out. So Mesh Central, I've talked about this one recently. I use this quite a bit for my personal machines. Really terrific project. So Mesh Central is one of my hands down favorite tools. This is a tool that gives me access to machines that basically they have an agent running and they call out to my server and my server says, oh, I see you, let me add you to the list, and now I can access those machines remotely. You'll see them kind of blink on and off as they check in and do a few different things, but I mean, really an amazing tool. So like here's a couple of my servers here at my house. Here's my iMac. Here's one of my desktops that I use on a pretty regular basis. Here's some servers that I use for a client that just gives me access when I need to have it really quick, and I can help them out if they need it. This is one for a friend of mine. I mean, just really an amazing tool. Now, I'm not using it as much as you could, but it's got incredible controls. But I mean, this lets me do remote desktop. So I think, let me see if my Mac is on. We'll go to desktop. Let's do connect. Yeah, there it is. So this is my iMac. It's running Linux, and I'm able to get right to the desktop. So I can go over here and actually full screen this thing. And I can just control my Linux desktop just like I would anything else. If I open up the files manager, there it is. I can drag this stuff around on the screen. It's just a remote desktop right through the browser. It gives me all this capability, and it's really just because that agent is running on that machine. I've got all these different functions that I have at the bottom here and all this different control that I get out of it, and really just tremendous power with Mesh Central. So many different things you can do, so much logging, so many permissions you can give to users. It's an incredible tool. If you are an IT professional, if you are the person who supports your family and friends, if it doesn't matter, it's really a great tool. As long as they don't mind putting that agent on their machine and letting you have access when you need it, absolutely incredible, incredible, incredible open source software right here. And as we roll on TrueNAS, this is another one that I haven't covered it a lot, but I've covered it a few times in the past. It's one of those things where it's honestly, set it up, get it set the way you want it, and then let it work. TrueNAS is a network attached storage system, and you can see here it's doing absolutely nothing right now. I've got all these cores and they're sitting there doing nothing because I transfer things to it, and then it just sits there doing what it's supposed to do, which is keep my data safe for me. Basically keep it all backed up. I've got RAID set up on it, and I've got ZFS stuff set up on it, and I've got things in redundancies. I just want to make sure that I've got all that space. So on my RAM, I've got 31 gigs. It's free as half that, nearly a little over half that's in use. We've got basically my PMOX backup drive. So you can see here that it's 9.9 terabytes is the available space. So I've used up some, but not much. I think it's a total of 12 terabytes. I can't remember, but I've got that in redundant storage set up so that it's getting duplicated all the time. So I feel really good about the things that I'm pushing over there to keep safe and keep backed up. You can see my network card, all that information, and you've got all these different controls. So you can set up your different shares and your different share types, and then go set those up to be NFS shares or Samba shares or whatever else you want, and really keep all your systems backed up to this really nice NAS storage. And the other thing about it, the part that I don't use, but that's really awesome if you want to use it and set it up this way, is that if you're setting up as your NAS, you can also set up apps. So I don't have it running, like I said, I'm not using it this way, but you can set this up, and basically it runs Kubernetes in the background, but you can run Docker images and things like that, and they have apps that are really kind of already set up. You click them, you set up some settings in the side, and you start them up, and then it tells you how to access them. And again, you can set that up with Nginx Proxy Manager to get access through your network, and this can even be like your server for your different application services and stuff like that. I mean, really, again, just an incredible system, and this is running Linux, so TrueNAS, the core TrueNAS runs on BSD, so very stable Unix kind of BSD based system. TrueNAS Scale is a little bit newer. It's come out in the last couple of years, but again, I have had zero issues with it. Nothing has gone wrong with this thing so far, knock on wood. But yeah, I mean, it's just been super solid, and that runs Linux, which is amazing. So you get that benefit of Docker and some other great containerization out of it. Kubernetes is just awesome. So yeah, I think it's really just an amazing tool. Again, it's one of those ones that I set up and I really don't even look at it very often. I log into it to check some things. I've got it set up to email me if things are seeming to go wrong. Other than that, I just let it do its thing. It's an amazing tool. That's the kind of tool that's the best kind in a lot of cases. So, Vault Warden. Yeah, this is definitely one of my more favorite applications actually. So I'm going to log in here. So yeah, Vault Warden, again, I'm accessing it through the browser, but then I've got it set up to go through the application here on my desktop. I've got it set up to go through the applet that's installed in Firefox. I can also set it up for Chrome. I've got it set up on my phone. It all syncs to my server where I'm running everything for Bitwarden. And I've got all of my passwords and all of my two-factor authentication and just everything set up. And I've got my family set up, and I've got folders set up, and I've got things shared. And it's just, again, this is one of those applications that really you set it up, and I don't log into the web interface very often except to do a backup. I really just use the applications that are here, and most of the time it's just the browser thing. I log into it and let it help me log into my different sites. It's just such a super useful application, and once you start using a password manager and you have strong passwords set up that are different for everything, you will just be blown away at how much it just alleviates you from having to think about what was the password for that. Oh, let me check my password manager. It's right there. You'll be so happy that you set up something like this and started going through the process of making everything have really strong passwords, two-factor authentication when you can. I mean, just absolutely another one that I use it every single day, but it's really, once I've set up the server, it's a kind of a set it and forget it kind of thing. Just absolutely incredible. Vault Warden is awesome. So remotely, this is remote desktop access. So this is one that, especially if you're a Windows support type person, you set this server up, your friends, your family call you, whatever, your clients that trust you call you and they say, hey, I can't do something. You tell them, okay, go out to my website, go to the downloads page. They're going to come here and go, do I need to log in? Just tell them no. Just go to the downloads page. They're going to click on the downloads. You're going to tell them, okay, you're on Windows 64, so I want you to find that one that says 64-bit and it says Windows EXE. Just click on it. You're going to click on that thing. It's going to download right there. You're going to tell them, all right, I'm going to get you to go open that up, and it's going to run a little application, and then you're going to tell them, hey, I need the code that it gives you when the application window pops up, and then you're going to have remote desktop access, kind of like you do with AnyDesk or TeamViewer, things like that, and they can give you access, they can take away your access, you get all these great controls. Again, I've got a really full-length video on remotely. It's terrific software. The company that took it over has been working on it, so I'm expecting some updates to come soon for it as well. I'm really excited about the prospect of it getting even better, and it's open source. Again, everything here is open source. This is just so much amazing open source software that it just makes me so happy. But I wanted to tell you, I use this. I use this on a pretty regular basis as well. All these remote applications I use all the time. Guacamole is another one. This is just such an incredible application. This gives me remote access to my different machines. So this is an application that is created so that you can set up remote desktop access. Now, as you can see, I'm accessing this through HTTPS. I have strong password and username to get into this. I mean, it is just such an incredible tool, and I was doing some testing with my regular job, and we were having a hard time replicating a problem with just a single browser, and the dev team was not having this issue in any of their systems. They couldn't make it happen. So I thought, well, let me spin up a couple of these VMs real quick, and I was able to replicate it on both systems, so I was able to give them access. And I didn't want them to have access to these are my main machines. I wanted them to be able to have access to these VMs, so I gave one access to the Windows 10 and one access to the Windows 11, and they both were able to work in tandem and access these things, and I didn't have to worry about them getting here. So it's really got some great control. You can do some really cool stuff with it, and again, it's just, you click on it, it's going to go out and try to do a remote desktop session. And there we go, Windows 11. It's going to log me in because it's already got my credentials saved. I mean, just everything that you need to have set up, you can get set up in these systems. And it just makes it super terrific to be able to access this through a browser, because I could be anywhere and access my own URL and start getting into these things and just accessing these systems. It just makes it super, super easy. So there we go. Here's Windows 11. It's opened up. It's running. It's working. It's running in a VM. And when I'm tired of it, I can just come here and shut it down, or I can just close the tab. It doesn't matter how I do it. It's just super easy. I mean, super, super easy to get this going. So if I want to just go back, I can just go right back to my Guacamole, and it's open right here. So it's actually still running down here. But then I can go over here to my Windows 10 machine, and I can do the same thing. It's going to log in. And I've still got Windows 11 down here, so I can switch back and forth between these guys as well. So I've got this open, I've got this one open, so I can switch back. You can see that Windows 10 is still logging in down here, and then I can switch back once it logs in. And again, I've got access to these two different desktops. I can just do all kinds of really great stuff with this. I think it's just really terrific. And again, it works with Linux, it works with Windows, anything that supports VNC or RDP, it's going to work with. So the next one is Pi-hole. Now I actually run two Pi-hole servers. Now I run them inside of two different physical servers that are running Proxmox, but I run two different Pi-holes, and basically so that I have redundancy. If I have to reboot one of the servers, the other one's up and running, and my internet continues to run because I use these for my DNS. But I love Pi-hole. It gives me so much stuff. It gives me a ton of protection against ads and things like that it's blocking. Makes me feel better about my family browsing and things like that. But yeah, I mean, you can see here, this is the primary. The other one's the secondary, but you can see kind of what the difference is with the numbers. 334,000, and this one's got 100 and something thousand. So you can tell that most of the time it hits the primary, of course. But yeah, I mean, Pi-hole, just terrific. If you haven't tried it, I've got videos out there on getting it set up. There's tons of videos on getting it set up for any kind of system, but I run these in an LXC container, one on each system, so really made it super easy to get set up, and it's very lightweight to run that way. So PiAlert is another one that I've done a video on in the past. One of the things that I got when I ran Eros was as new machines would come onto the system or connect, I would get a notification and it would say, hey, a new device connected, and I could go kind of check out and see what that device was and make sure things weren't getting on my network that shouldn't. And I kind of missed that when I started switching over to different hardware and software. So PiAlert kind of gives you that. You've got to tune it a little bit. You've got to get it kind of set up and ready. But once you've got that set up, you can get it to actually give you that information and send you emails and notifications about that kind of stuff. So I really like this one, and it installs Pi-hole with it if you set it up correctly. So one of the servers I did Pi-hole just directly, and the other one I did PiAlert with Pi-hole on it. And yeah, you get everything out of the box that way, and it's really great. So yeah, PiAlert is really a cool application as well. If you're looking for notifications about when things are joining your network and you don't have something set up on your pfSense or OpenSense or your OpenWRT or DWRT to do that, PiAlert might be a great option for you. So my speed tracker, I did this not so long ago. It was probably a few months ago, but I was running an old version of it, and then I found out that somebody had made a new version, had taken it, forked it and made a new version. And this thing runs a check about every 30 or 40, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour, I can't remember. But it checks that I'm getting the speeds I expect, and it checks that everything's running. And if it's not, it sends me a notification so that I know, like, hey, something's not right, or something may have gone wrong at some point, and I can kind of go check that. Right now, you can see I've been up and steady for most of the day, which is awesome. So usually once a day, I'll get some kind of just drop all of a sudden. So, it's just weirdness. But yeah, I mean, this has been really steady all day. So I love this one too. Really easy to set up, really easy to get going, and got some good notifications and great dashboards here. So here you can see your download and upload. So downloads up here, it's really fast, uploads really slow. You can see your ping time, so those kind of go all over the place, but again, it's all below like 32 milliseconds, which is great. And then you can see the jitter, which just tells you like how much stability is there in the signal that you're getting. So not as much here, but then suddenly it gets pretty stable, which is great. So it's been that way for most of the day. That's awesome. Yeah, that's speed tracker, a speed test tracker. So again, I'll have links in the show notes and the description for all of the things that I'm talking about and going through. And if you guys are interested in one of them, just go click on those. Again, I'll have the video, I'll have the show notes that I have instructions on how to get it set up, and then I'll have their site or their GitHub page linked as well so that you can go check out more information about them directly. Uptime Kuma, I covered this a long time ago. I think most people who do self-hosting have covered this for quite a while. Yeah, so that was telling me something's down, and it's my discussion forums, because Rocket Chat is another thing that I use, but I messed up. This is not a Rocket Chat problem. It's gotten old, and I didn't migrate as soon as I should have, and in my migration attempts today, I've messed some things up, so I'm going to get it back up and running, but haven't had time to work with it. So it's showing you, this is a good example. It's down, right? You can see what's going on with it. I had it up for a few minutes, but things weren't working quite right, so it was saying, yeah, it's there, but I knew it wasn't working right, so I took it back down, and you can see that in those checks, it's letting me know, like, hey, it's back down. But here I can see like all of my different things that are up, and I can click on any of them to see what's going on, how they're doing. And again, some good stats about my different services that I'm running, and a lot of different information about the tests that it runs. So really, really cool. I love this thing. It gives me a lot of really good information. When I reboot my server after an update or anything, I get a bunch of this isn't running, because it's, it's checking and it's running from a whole different place, so that when I reboot the server, it's not down. It lets me know like, hey, something's wrong, which is great. But Uptime Kuma is awesome. If you're just trying to kind of check the status of your pages, really, really great. I really like it. It's given me tons and tons of help. And a few times where I didn't realize things were not running, it sent me notification emails, and I was like, something's bad. I've also got it set up to send me webhooks to my Rocket Chat, which isn't working right now. But again, when that's working, it's great, because I get a Rocket Chat notification right away, and I can come see like what's going on and see if something's happened to my applications. It's really, really great. Love this one. Home Assistant is definitely one that I use a ton, and I did some videos on Home Assistant. I kind of liked it, but honestly, there's so many channels out there that do really, really great Home Assistant information. I mean, they do just all kinds of things, for home automation and Home Assistant. I just didn't want to get into that arena, honestly. Those guys do such a better job at it. I just wanted to let them keep doing it. But yeah, I mean, I use this for everything. So this is kind of my main dashboard where I can control some lights. But I see the weather, I can see the temperature in my house, set it, change it, whatever. I've got a couple of the primary cameras I want to keep an eye on here. And then I've got all kinds of stuff. So I've got my office, you know, real quick. I can see the different temperatures in the office and how things are going. Lights on, lights off in my office, stuff like that. And then as I go through the different tabs, I've got bedroom stuff where really there's scenes and I can just give audio commands, but there's buttons if I need to go in and press the button for some reason. This is just a testing one for the most part these days. I don't really use it for much anymore, but it's got a couple of lights out in the outside office that I used to be in that I can control from here. Got all the cameras around my house so I can see, you know, pretty much around my house here. I've got a few more that I'll be putting up, but yeah, I mean, this gives me some great quick information. It's really easy to see it from here and kind of see what's happening. I've got my outside lights kind of switched that I can turn things on and off whenever I've got decorations up. And then my testing board where this is one that I can send out a notification to my family that just tells them, hey, I'm about to do network maintenance. Don't come tell me the internet's down. Like, I know I'm doing it. So really like this. Home Assistant's just incredible. It gives you so much capability, but a lot of this stuff, I don't even have to use it. I've automated everything to do just what it's supposed to do, when it's supposed to do it, and when it needs to do it. And that's the power of something like this. It gives you so much efficiency and automation that you can put into it. If you just put a little time and thought into what you want to do, this thing can give you just tons of power. And honestly, super stable. The group that makes it just really has gone above and beyond to make this thing incredibly good. I really love what they do with it. Super awesome. Home Assistant is great. So this is my email client, but I run Mail in a Box, and I've done several videos on running Mail in a Box in your own email client. I use Mail in a Box, and it runs really well. Now, I have it hosted on DigitalOcean, but what I've found is I set it up about 5 or 6 years ago and just left it running. But I did some videos recently, and I found out, you know, DigitalOcean blocks the ports for email because, unfortunately, things like Mail in a Box make it so easy to spin up a mail server that you get a bunch of scammers who spin up mail servers and a bunch of spam, and then they get blocked, and then they shut down that DigitalOcean or Linode or whoever server, and they do it again and again and again. So all those different companies like Linode, DigitalOcean, Vultr, all of them have just blocked the outgoing ports. And I think like with some, like with Vultr, maybe you have to have an account for so many days, you know, 90 days or something first, and then they'll say, hey, we'll turn it on if you ask us to. And I can't guarantee that, so don't go ask them. But I've heard that some of them, once you've had an account for a while, they'll enable that if you ask them to, so that you can run your own mail server. But yeah, I mean, it's just turned into a thing where it's really hard to run your own mail server. I'm lucky this one's up and running. DigitalOcean has not blocked it. I'm also not a spammer, so that's great. But yeah, I mean, I love Mail in a Box. It's a really great tool. There's a user interface for Mail in a Box too, but I just happened to open the mail thing just to kind of talk about it. Mail in a Box has just been tremendous for everything. So this one's bright, and I apologize, but this is my sprinkler system. So I even have my sprinkler system running an open source software called Open Sprinkler, and it actually runs on 2 Raspberry Pi 3s. I've got 2 of these actually. I've got one that runs most of my zones and one that runs a few extra zones. So I've got 8 zones here, and I think I've got 2 or 3 zones on the other one. But it just runs on a Raspberry Pi 3, and it's got a little board that they sell you, and you just connect it to the Raspberry Pi 3, and they've got a little clear plexiglass case. You can run it on Wi-Fi, or you can run it on the network with a cable. I run it on Wi-Fi, and it runs great. And yeah, I just set it with a schedule to go and run. It's very easy. The reason I got this was because I hated the boxes that were on the wall that were made by sprinkler people who you know, nothing against engineers, but they just don't know how to make a good user interface. And it had buttons that you're like, I don't know what this does, and the button has like 5 different things that it does, but you have to know how to click it the right way to make it do it. It was miserable to try to learn how to use different sprinkler boxes, even with their instructions a lot of times. And this was just so easy because it's a web interface. You open this up, you go down here to edit programs, and you'll have your different programs that you set up, and you can go in and enable your programs or not enable your programs. It's really up to you. You just expand this, and you can go in and enable the program. So I'll enable it right there. And in fact, it's been raining, so I disabled it, but I'll enable it because it hasn't rained in a few days. And then you just save it. But I've got this set up, and you can see like zone 1 I don't use, but zone 2, 3, 4, I've got all these set to go off. They run for 12 minutes, and then they rest for like an hour after the last one stops, and then they run for 12 minutes again so that the water has time to actually soak into the ground. But setting all that stuff up is super easy. I just go here and I tell it, here's the days I want it to run. Here's when I want it to start. Here's the zones that I want it to do and how long I want each one to run. And then down here I tell it I want it to run every 2 hours and repeat it 1 time. That's it. Super simple. Super simple. It's in a web interface. And if I want to run them manually, I just click the back button and I can click on a zone and I can tell it I want it to run for 5 minutes. And then I hit go and it's going to start sprinklers in that zone for 5 minutes. It's just super, super simple. It's not something where I've got to come inside to a box and press a bunch of buttons and try to get it to run right. And then when it starts running, I can't remember how to get it to stop. So yeah, I love this thing. It's terrific. I've been using Open Sprinkler for just a really, since we moved into this house, and it's been great. I've loved every second of it. That's about it for my list. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you get a lot out of it. If you did, please like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time. It's your Open Source Advocate, and I'm back, and I've set up a store with a little bit of merchandise. I love being your Open Source Advocate, but I want you guys to be the Open Source Advocates with me. So if you want to, get out there and get some of this stuff. And if you do, let me know what you think of it. Thank you for subscribing.